Welcome to Pre-Health, What You Need to Know, hosted by Director of Health Careers Advising Stephen Scherger and Dean Nancy Dilulio of the Office of Undergraduate Studies. My name is Michael Mason, and I'll be taking your questions via email to be answered live and on air. If you have a question, please send it to summerreghelp@case.edu with the subject line Info Session. If we don't answer your question live, we'll follow up with you via email shortly. Now to your hosts, Stephen Scherger and Nancy Dilulio.
Welcome. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening who's joining us. We'll just go right into it. And first, I'd like to start off with by mentioning the goals that we have for this session this evening and what we hope you'll be able to take away from it in helping you prepare to register for your upcoming courses this fall. First of all, we're going to talk about the academic requirements for the pre-health sciences, both the courses that you'll need to take to prepare yourself as a pre-health student, as well as the requirements that the schools that you look to be going to after your time here at Case Western as an undergrad. Secondly, we're going to look specifically at the fall schedules and what classes you would be wanting to register for this upcoming fall. And finally, we want to give you time to send in questions and answer those questions about what it's like to be a pre-health science student here at Case Western, and talk about a lot of the different opportunities that are available to you, both in and out of the classroom. Just to remind you that when you do have questions, that you want to email those to the summerreghelp@case.edu. So going into schedule considerations, as you think about what classes you're going to want to be taking for this upcoming fall semester, there's two things that you really need to be considering. First of all, you want to be considering what are the program requirements. So if you're planning to go to medical school, dental school, pharmacy school, or some other professional health science school, what are the classes that you're going to need to take that those schools themselves require? We're going to go through that list here in a bit. Now, the reality is that some of these courses do vary somewhat depending on which program you're looking to go into, and even between some of the schools. So not every medical school or dental school necessarily has every requirement, but for the most part they all have the core science requirements, and especially in the first year, regardless of what area you're looking to, what area of study you're looking to go into, it's pretty much the same. Secondly, as we consider what courses to be taken, we need to be thinking about preparation for the entrance exams that you'll need for these schools. Courses such as or tests such as the MCAT for medical schools, the DAT for dental schools, and so on. And so we want to make sure that you are taking the right courses, and so that is another major consideration that you'll want to be considering, that we'll be advising you on. Now, those exams typically are taken at the end of the third year, but you have to begin even in your first semester to make sure you're taking those courses in the right sequence.
So if we want to think a little bit more about planning your schedule for your first year and actually beyond to your second and third year to get ready for those entrance exams, we have a list of courses here, subject areas really, that you need to take no matter which of those particular health professions you aspire to. So if we start looking at this list, it really starts off with chemistry. So you're going to need 2 semesters of inorganic chemistry, sometimes referred to as general chemistry with a lab course, and 2 semesters of organic chemistry with a lab course. You're going to start with those inorganic chemistry courses and labs in your first year and move on to organic chemistry in the second year. Most of these pre-health science programs also are going to require you to take some biology. So you need 2 semesters of biology with lab. Now here at Case Western Reserve, we have a different sort of arrangement in our introductory to biology sequence. So even though the schools usually require you to take 2 semesters of biology lab, most of you are going to end up taking 3. We have a 3-semester sequence that covers everything that's going to be on those entrance exams and covers the material that's going to be the foundation for your study once you get to your graduate program in the health careers. In addition, you need a solid grounding in the physical sciences, so 2 semesters of physics with lab as well. Quite commonly, we're seeing lots of requirements in most of these programs for a semester of biochemistry. And once again, biochemistry is going to be foundational for the coursework you're going to do in your graduate program. So as you're prepping, taking your courses, you are going to eventually need to do some study in biochemistry. Typically, that'll be in your third year till you get there. That'll come after your OChem. Really important are semesters of English composition. So 2 semesters of English composition is going to be important because no matter what your career is these days, there's a lot of writing, reading, communication, presentations. All of those skills are critical, and you're going to get those from your English composition courses. Those courses are going to be comprised of your SAGES seminar. So your SAGES first seminar and on into your university seminars are going to get you what you need to meet those requirements. For medical schools, some require 2 semesters of calculus, some require 1. For the dental programs and so on, some also require calculus, 1 or 2 semesters. It's a good idea to take some statistics, and then finally some study in the behavioral science areas. 1 or 2 semesters in those areas. If you're considering medical school, the areas that you really want to focus on are going to be sociology and psychology. If you're going into one of the other health professions, your choices are a little bit broader. For example, if you want to study pharmacy, for those behavioral science type courses, something in economics might be advisable, and for some of the pharmacy programs actually required. So if we think about all of this information so far, what do you need to be prepared for the program you want to apply to? What do you need to consider in terms of courses to get ready for those entrance exams? That's a lot to think about as you're deciding what you're going to schedule in your very first semester here coming up in the fall. Some other things to think about as you're scheduling are probably a little bit more basic but equally important. You really want to think about your major area of interest. And one of the questions we get all the time is, what is the best major if I'm going to dental school? Or what is the best major if I want to go to medical school, and so on? And actually there isn't a best major for that process, but there is a best major out there for you. So you want to think about your areas of interest, what you want to study, what you're passionate about, and choose your major area of interest accordingly. We have many students who want to pursue multiple majors and minors, and that's fine. There's a lot of flexibility in some of our curricula that's going to allow you to be able to do that, but you don't have to have a minor. You don't have to have more than 1 major to be well prepared and be a competitive candidate for these professional programs. We also get a lot of questions about the BA versus the BS degree. In some cases, we have majors that a student can pursue, either a BA or a BS degree, but it doesn't really matter when it comes time to apply to your professional school. As you're considering your process, your BA versus your BS, some things to think about are, do you want to do more than 1 major? Is there an area that you really want to dive into more deeply? The BS degrees, in those departments that offer them, typically you're going to do more intense focused study in that area compared to a BA degree, which is going to give you a little bit more flexibility to be a little bit more broad in your approach to your studies. But as I say, there is no favorite BA versus BS. There's no advantage in either of those or disadvantage in either of those when it comes time to apply to your professional school program. And then finally, your general education requirements. I already mentioned those English composition semesters, and you're going to get started on those right away with your first seminar. And your first seminar course is really teaching you some skills that are really critical when you get to be a professional. So those writing skills, those presentation skills, and so on. In addition, whatever major area of interest you have or you decide to pursue, everyone has to take courses in what are known as breadth requirements. Courses that are going to be a little bit different than your major focused area of study, and a chance for you to learn about some other things in the world. Those breadth requirements are a good place to think about those behavioral science courses if you're not majoring in a behavioral or a social science. So if you're majoring in chemistry and you take psychology, psychology is going to help you out with your breadth requirements. Or if you're majoring in chemical engineering, once again, psychology, sociology, economics, all of those things can help you fill those general education degree requirements, in addition to helping you meet requirements to proceed on to your professional school program.
A few other things just before we actually start looking at schedules that you will want to consider. First of all, a lot of you probably will be receiving or AP credit or IB credit for different exams that you have done while in high school. And certainly we do encourage students to take advantage of that. The question always is, though, how do the professional schools look at such credit, and are they willing to accept it? So the first thing to consider is if you want to use this AP credit is, and even before you consider the professional school's perspective, is if you accept it and you are going to move on to the next course in the sequence, the more advanced course, do you actually feel prepared to do so? In many cases you may. Other times you may say, well, it's actually been a while since I've had that subject. Maybe you took chemistry as a sophomore in high school and it's been 2 years since you've had that, and some review would be helpful. So that's an individual decision for you to make, and there will be other seminars in the future, webinars here from faculty that will talk about those issues, as well as the first year registration guide provides some advice whether it's a good idea to take the credit, move on to the next course, or actually repeat it and forfeit the credit. In regards to the professional schools, for the most part, it is accepted. It is okay to accept the AP credit. Certainly, anything outside the sciences would be encouraged to do so. Within the sciences, typically, if you're going to accept credit for mathematics or physics, that's okay, as long as you're going to be doing a course here at Case Western. So, if you say for physics you did receive credit and you move into the Physics 2 course, that's perfectly okay to do so. Same thing with mathematics. If you do test outside, or if you test where you receive credit for 2 semesters of math and your major no longer requires any more, personally I would recommend a statistics course, but that would be something you would want to talk about with scheduling with an advisor. Usually where the bigger question becomes, or the more important question is in biology and chemistry and whether you should take the credit there, because there we do see that the schools sometimes are reluctant to accept AP credit. However, in terms of biology here at Case and the credit that you could receive if you score high enough on the AP exam, that's not really going to affect your pre-professional coursework. The reason being is although you would receive biology credit that would be applied towards graduation, your credit hours towards graduation, it's not going to be the right course or the right type of credit for the coursework that the professional schools are going to be looking for, and so you would start with biology 214 anyway, and you would be on the right sequence. As in regards to chemistry, where if you do score high enough, you could receive credit for Chem 105 and Chem 113, the first semester of general chemistry with the lab, and you could then move on to the second semester. If you felt you were ready, you would typically be okay doing this. Even if it was a professional school that typically did not take AP credit, the fact that you will be taking additional coursework in organic chemistry, you'll be doing advanced level work in biochemistry, and as long as you're doing that, the med schools will feel, and the other professional schools will feel that you've had a sufficient amount of chemistry at the college, the university level, that they're not going to be concerned about that one credit or that one course that you may have received AP credit in. Again, the FYI guide or the first year registration guide does provide guidance on this as well. And also in the first year registration guide, there is a section to the pre-health sciences, and this topic is discussed more there as well. Other things to be considering as you structure your first semester of courses for this fall. Most of you will be looking to take 15 to 17 credit hours. This will typically be 4 classes. For some, it may be 5 courses that you would be enrolling in, but typically a normal load would be 15 to 17. The final thing to consider is if you've looked at what the requirements are and what's recommended to take in the first semester, you've looked at your major or maybe minors that you have in mind and what they might recommend, and you still find yourself with an open slot, take something of personal interest. This is a chance to go out and explore and to push yourself and to challenge yourself. And the med schools really like that. All the health schools, professional health schools like that. They like students who do take time to explore, maybe push their boundaries, that challenge themselves. So don't be afraid to take something new, like maybe medical anthropology or introduction to bioethics, courses that relate to healthcare, but are not necessarily required and are not something you may have encountered in your high school experiences. Now at this point, we do want to quickly go over what the registration would look like for the fall and what courses you might want to be taking. Don't worry, as we are going to be showing these slides shortly of what a sample schedule may look like. Don't worry if you miss it. All of this is, again, in the first year registration guide, so you can reference it here as well. The charts that we'll be showing up on the screen are the ones that are in the chart there. Now, I'm going to start with the biological and chemical science majors because this really kind of serves as a foundation for what everyone should be looking to take in the first semester. With then we'll talk about variations with the other majors. So for the most part, most pre-health students are already going to be taking 3 courses in the sciences. You're going to be starting your chemistry sequence, you're going to start your biology sequence, and you are also going to be taking a math course. So you have 3 courses right there. Once you add then your 4th course, which is not on the chart here, but would be your SAGE's first seminar, you're already up into that 15 to 17 credit hour range. And so now, again, if you have AP credit and if you're looking at the chart, all you would want to do if you say, for example, you did have AP credit for Chemistry 105, well, then you could move Chemistry 106 there, and then all the chemistry courses would move up on the chart. Similarly with the mathematics as well. Now, a few things to consider beyond just what's in the charts is Chem 113, which is the chemistry lab. That can be taken either in the first or the second semester of your first year. So if you have room and you'd like to get the lab out of the way in your first semester, I encourage you to register for it. But if you're already at 17 credit hours from your other courses, you can certainly wait to take the lab in spring semester. Also, as has already been mentioned, but it's worth reiterating, the schools do have an English requirement, typically 2 semesters of writing that will be covered by your SAGE's seminars. And so you will be beginning that process with the first seminar. Finally, the introductory, especially for the pre-meds who will need to take introductory psychology and introductory sociology in order to prepare themselves for the MCAT that they would be taking at their junior year. If you have room, you can take it in your first semester, even your first year, but certainly feel free to be able to wait and take that in your second or third year. As long as you take it before the MCAT, you'll be in good shape. Now, switching over to the mathematical and physical science majors, when you look at the courses that we recommend for those, you'll see it's very similar to the previous chart. Really, the only difference for these students that we're recommending is that instead of starting your biology in your first year, you move that to your second year when you would start it, and then in the first year you would be taking your physics. And this is typically because students who fall in these areas such as physics, math majors, and so on, it's often a good idea to get your physics out of the way in your first year because it's a requirement for other courses, and the biology can then wait to the second year. You still need to start the chemistry. Chemistry really is the foundation to a lot of the courses, so it is important regardless that you are always starting with that. Looking at the engineering students, they are very similar to the mathematical and physical science majors. Here again, we are recommending that they take their math and their chemistry and physics in their first year. Hold off until the second year to take your biology courses. One thing to note, especially when you start to look at the physics majors and what they recommend, not everyone recommends that you start physics in your first semester. Some will say that you start with computer programming, such as Engineering 131 or ESIS 132. Go ahead and follow that recommendation if that is what your major suggests. The physics can certainly wait to start until the second semester. Finally, then, for students who are looking to major in the arts, humanities, and social sciences, here again, we do recommend that you start with the chemistry and the biology sequences in the first semester. You'll see that the math isn't listed there, and that is intentional. We do feel that it'd be best just to go ahead and get the chemistry lab out of the way, the Chem 113. You can then pick up the Math 125, the one semester of calculus that you would need to complete, not necessarily for your major, but for the pre-health requirements. Take that in the second semester. This will allow flexibility so that you can also begin coursework, at least maybe take one course that would be in the major you plan to take, such as psychology or history or something along those lines. Also, you will see the one thing that's noticed if you're looking at all of the semesters is there is only one semester of calculus suggested here, whereas all the other majors were suggested to take 2 semesters. The reason for that was because all of those other majors are going to require 2 semesters of calculus. Because most of your majors will not require any, we only recommend 1 semester because, again, that's what most of the schools are going to be looking for. And then instead of a second semester of calculus, I would strongly recommend a course in statistics either in your second or third year. Finally, just to cover, there typically are questions about, well, who is my advisor? Who's going to help me get ready for med school, make sure I'm taking all of the right courses? So it is important to talk about the advising structure here. As a pre-professional student, you really have two advisors that will always be with you. You may even have more. Starting from day one, really starting from now, you have a pre-professional health advisor who will remain with you throughout your career here at Case Western Reserve as an undergraduate student. And that individual is actually myself. I am the Director of Health Career Advising, and I work out of the Office of Undergraduate Studies, and I will be working with you from the day you step on campus. Make sure that you understand all of these academic requirements you have, but also what else you need to be doing in terms of clinical exposure, getting involved in research, student organizations and activities. And then finally, when you get to your third and fourth year and you are ready to apply, I will be helping you through the application process. Now, overlapping this system of pre-professional advising is the faculty advising or the academic advising that occurs at the university. You will always have a faculty advisor working with you as well. First, in your first semester, you will have a SAGES advisor. The instructor for your first seminar will also serve as your first faculty advisor. And they are more of a generalist. They may not be in your major area necessarily, but they know the academic policies, especially as they impact first-year students, and they will be helping you explore different academic areas and getting you ready to declare your major when you're able to do so. Once you do declare a major, you will then receive a faculty advisor in that area. If you declare more than one major, if you declare a minor, you'll get a faculty advisor for each of those areas. Now, you may be thinking, well, what are they going to know about pre-med, especially like if I'm a history major, I'm a psych major, I'm not in the science areas. Most of the advisors are very knowledgeable, and I work with them. And so we work as a tandem, as a team, to help you and to assist you so that the faculty advisors also understand the unique requirements you might have being someone who is looking to go on to the professional schools after your undergraduate career here at Case.
Wow, that's a lot of information to take in, and so we recognize that you probably have some questions. So please, at this point, send us your questions by email to summerreghelp@case.edu, and we're going to answer those live on air. I know on the YouTube channel there's a section for comments. Please don't put your questions in the comments. If you send it to us by email and we don't get a chance to answer it this evening, we'll be able to email right back to you the answer once our broadcast is over. So summerreghelp@case.edu.
All right, Stephen and Dean Dilulio, thank you very much for that background information, and we do have some questions. We'll get right into it. So Ryan's curious. He wants to know about foreign language and medical school. He's heard that there are some schools, particularly those in California, for example, that may require students to take Spanish, and wants to know how important it might be for a pre-health student to take a foreign language.
Yeah, I'll take that question. Brian is correct in that there are a few medical schools that are beginning to require some type of at least basic proficiency level in another language. Typically it is Spanish, and typically where we see it are schools with high concentrations of Spanish-speaking patients that would be in those states such as California, Texas, and Florida. But it is only a few schools where that is the case, and it's something you would want to look at as a first-year student. I will certainly work with you to identify what schools might actually have that requirement, if those might be schools you may want to apply to or are thinking about applying to in the future. You would be able to take these courses at some time during your undergraduate career, whether it would be electives, if it would be courses that might meet your general education requirements. Most students have to take at least 2 courses in the humanities, and language courses certainly can fulfill that requirement. Also, just in general, it's a good idea to be able to, if not Spanish, maybe be able to speak other languages. Certainly, cross-cultural competency is something that the medical schools look at as well. And not that speaking another language by itself may give you that, but it is one way that you can show that you have the ability to work with diverse populations, which is always a benefit. Again, the medical schools and the other professional health science schools are looking for that as well. Oftentimes, keep in mind as well, is they may not even be looking necessarily for a specific course, like you have had a course or two in Spanish. It may simply be that you have basic proficiency skills. So if you took Spanish in high school, or if you grew up in a family that spoke Spanish and you have that skills, you may not even need the coursework if you have retained at least that basic proficiency level.
Thanks, Stephen. We've got a couple questions in now about biomedical engineering. Shruti and Benjamin are both curious about doing pre-med along with the biomedical engineering requirements. How difficult is it? And also, is it doable within a 4-year time period, assuming the student has no credit?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We have a really outstanding biomedical engineering department with lots of opportunities to take some really great coursework and do some good things. So biomedical engineering as a major, if you're planning to go to medical school, is perfectly acceptable. You're going to take those chemistry courses, the math courses, the physics courses that you'll need. And there are some courses within the biomedical engineering curriculum that actually can fulfill the requirement for biology courses as well. And so the coursework will line up to help you get to where you need to go. You have to make sure that you get OChem in and maybe do a little bit of biochemistry before you get to that MCAT year in your junior year, but the curriculum will help you get what you need from there. Biomedical engineering is sometimes challenging. Sometimes students find that curriculum challenging. You want to make sure that you're choosing the major for you that you are really passionate about and interested in, because that's where you're going to do your best work. And at the end of the day, when it comes time to apply to medical school, you want to show them that strong academic record. And so, if you're way into engineering, biomedical engineering is a great way to go. If you're more of a biologist, more interested in psychology, or even studying languages or philosophy and so on, you want to follow those passions. Whichever major really strikes your interest, that you want to pursue, that's where you're going to be most successful.
Thank you. Jill's curious about physician assistant program. She knows that there's not a program like that here at Case Western Reserve, but she wants to know if that's a path she could pursue and if she could have advising to go and pursue that program.
Yes, certainly we do have, it's not a large population, but we do have students at the university who are currently planning and pursuing the physician assistant route. And actually we see more students each year. It is a growing field. And it certainly is possible to do here. Certainly in terms of the coursework that you would need to complete, for the most part, it does follow what the medical schools require. And so this, in terms of getting all the coursework in, that's usually very easy. I will admit it can be a challenge to get the clinical exposure you need. Many of these physician assistant programs have very high expectations in terms of the patient interaction that their applicants have had. And so not only just in terms of the number of hours that they've had volunteering in clinical settings, which is very easy actually to be able to get here at Case Western because of the medical and health facilities that surround the university, but oftentimes they're looking for a deeper level than simply someone who volunteers, say at Rainbow Babies or at the Cleveland Clinic. And they actually are looking for people who actually have assisted in the actual providing of care to patients. And so oftentimes, and usually the program that works best for the physician assistant students in this regard is they'll get their EMT basic certification and they'll join the CASE EMS group. Now that is a emergency response service that is provided to the campus community, run entirely by CASE students. And that will give the interaction that a lot of these programs are looking for. Oftentimes, maybe a nursing assistant, a medical assistant, things like that are other things that they're looking for. And that may be something that you might have to get additional certification for, and it may be something that will be difficult to balance during the school year, but certainly during the summers, whether it be here at campus or if you want to go back home and do it at medical facilities near your home, where you would need to get that experience. At other times, some students do find it challenging to get that type of clinical exposure that they're looking for. And so I just want to be upfront. And so sometimes they do need to take maybe a 5th year, not at Case, taking their classes. They've already graduated, but you may need a 5th year after graduation, just to get that clinical exposure. This is certainly something if you're interested in being a physician assistant, you would want to come and meet during your first year so that we can talk about how you would get involved in these other types of experiences.
Great, and then we're getting some more questions in actually about the volunteer and shadowing experiences. Students are interested in knowing more about how they can get connected with those and get started on that process.
Yep. We certainly have a lot of opportunities very close by campus where you can do that. University hospitals, the Cleveland Clinic, Rainbow Babies, the VA hospital, and so on. But Stephen, I think you've worked a little more directly with students recently in setting up those experiences.
Sure. As Dean Dilulio just stated, the great part about one of the great reasons it's good to be pre-health here at Case, and I would argue probably maybe the strongest reason, is the facilities that are available and the opportunities that are available to get that clinical exposure because of the different medical and health facilities that surround the campus area. To get involved, especially at the hospitals in the area, the hospitals have volunteer service offices, so whether it be university hospitals or the Cleveland Clinic, the student simply needs to apply through the volunteer service offices at those hospitals, and usually they get placed very quickly in a position. Also, there's the Free Clinic of Greater Cleveland, and they're always looking for students to be volunteering up there. There, it's a simple matter of going to their website, and you just apply through the website to get involved there. Don't limit yourself, though, just to hospitals and clinics. And there are a lot of other good opportunities that sometimes I think students don't think about or they overlook, such as nursing homes, hospice centers, patient recovery houses. There's a lot of those facilities here in the area. There may be other ones even back home for like when you're home over breaks or during the summer that you could work there as well. So those are all great opportunities. In addition, we do have a new student organization that started last year called Case by Case, and this helps more with the shadowing side. This is a student organization that has worked at creating a matching program at university hospitals where a student who wants to shadow with physicians and maybe even in particular departments, certain specialties you're interested in looking at, Case by Case has worked at identifying physicians who are ready to take on undergraduate students in a shadowing role and then try to provide those matches. Beyond that, though, students just need to be aggressive and they need to be ambitious and just get out there, work the pavement, work the offices, and look for those opportunities to shadow, whether that's calling offices, emailing physicians, knocking on doors, and just going out there and finding those opportunities. Again, because we have so many large hospitals and well-known hospitals in the area, typically it's very easy to find. It may take a couple calls or a couple emails, but usually it's typically very easy to find those opportunities.
Right, we have a student who's interested in knowing about undergraduate research and wants to know whether that's required or is it preferred for medical school applicants, and also how do undergrad students go about getting involved in research?
Oh, that's a great question, and the research experiences are really important as part of your development as you're preparing yourself to go off to school into these health careers. Research is not necessarily required, but it's a great opportunity to really sharpen your critical thinking skills. If you're going to enter into a research lab, you're going to have to take in a whole lot of information, propose a question or a problem, decide what information you need to know to answer or address that problem, and then do the experiments and get that data and answer those questions. That really parallels very well what a health care professional does in treating a patient. You're going to get some information from the patient, you're going to have to sort it out, figure out what else you need to address their issues, and then take care of that. Propose a hypothesis of what their pathology may be, and test that hypothesis out so that you can get the appropriate treatment. So research experience is really great to have. It's not required, but it is a good thing to do. And just as Mr. Scherger mentioned, at Case, it's a great place to be because of our proximity to hospitals in terms of volunteer work and other healthcare agencies. Being an undergraduate student at Case, I think one of the things that students really need to take advantage of is get connected with the faculty members so that you can work with them in the research that they're doing. Now, research that you're going to do as an undergraduate preparing to go into a health profession doesn't have to be in biomedical science. It could be research in psychology, it can be research in philosophy, it can be research in biomedical engineering, chemical engineering, macromolecular sciences, chemistry, whatever area, because the skills you develop as a researcher are going to be transferable from whichever subject area you're studying into your health career. So I think that we have a lot of faculty on campus who are very welcoming to have undergraduates in their research labs. And just as Mr. Scherger pointed out in terms of volunteering, you're going to have to be an advocate for yourself and hit the pavement, get out there, look for those opportunities, contact faculty, talk with them about their work, identify some folks doing work you're interested in, and see if you can volunteer with them and get going in a research program. But I do think it's a great opportunity. You don't have to do research every semester as an undergrad. You do research for part of the time, but then leave some of your time in other semesters for other extracurricular activities. I think that's a good plan, because ultimately when you're a healthcare professional, you're going to work with a lot of people. So being well-rounded in what you have learned and what you've studied is going to just help you be a better communicator with all the different people you're going to come across.
One thing I'd like to add to what Dean Dilulio just stated is she's absolutely correct in that, it's not necessarily that it's required to get into medical school or into dental school. Certainly can be beneficial and helpful. And there are certainly schools that do favor it. There are other schools where it really is a neutral factor. However, if you are thinking about like an MD PhD program, so this would be a joint program where typically 8 years where you would be getting both your MD and your PhD, typically the minimum requirement is 2 years of research in a laboratory. And so for those students who may want to at least keep that option open, if not your first year, probably by the summer or the start of your second year, you would need to be finding a lab to begin working in, and one that you should plan on working in for about 2 years.
Great, and we have some more questions about biomedical engineering and pre-med. Just some students wanting to get some clarification on what they would want to take in that first year as a biomedical engineering student who also wants to be fulfilling pre-med requirements.
Sure. The most important thing, and I think if you just kind of follow the recommended courses, even as a BME, but really all the engineering, you're going to be okay. In the first year, you want to be working on your chemistry. So for engineering, that's Chem 111, and then you'd be following that up with Engineering 145. It's a material science course, but the med schools do consider that as a chemistry course. You want to be working on your mathematics, and you want to be working on physics. Again, these are foundational to the major that you're going into, but also these are pre-med requirements that you would be getting out of the way. There is no reason to start your biology courses in your first year. There's plenty of time in the second and third years to do that. In the second and third years, though, you are going to then need to look at how are you going to get in your OChem, your organic chemistry, your biochemistry, and your biology courses. Now, earlier we talked about that you would be looking at needing to take 3 biology courses. It's a 3-course sequence that the pre-meds typically take. As a BME student, in your second year, there's 2 courses, eBME 201 and 202. That provides material that the 3rd course in that biology sequence covers, that you would be tested on in the MCAT the med schools would expect you to take. So typically, you're then only needing to look at taking the first 2 biology courses, Biology 214 and 215, in that sequence along with their labs, because you still do need a year of bio lab.
Thanks. And Lena has a question. She wants to know, does the Case Medical School give any preference to Case Undergrad when it comes time to considering their applications?
You want me
to? Yeah. You can take that one
too. Yeah, I'll take that one again. There really is no preference given to the undergraduate students in the broad scheme of things. There is some slight preference in terms of granting interviews, so you are, as a Case undergrad, more likely to be granted an interview to the medical school, and that is a significant advantage in the sense that typically, if you look at the Case Medical School's numbers, only about a quarter of the applicants each year actually get an interview, so there is an advantage to that. But in the final decision, there is no advantage giving it. It really is a neutral factor. So at least the good news is it isn't considered a negative, because there actually are some med schools that don't like to actually take from their undergraduate population. So it is neutral. Now, that being said, over the last 5 years, the Case Medical School still has been the largest school that we've fed undergraduate students in. Now, the reason for that, though, is just that most Case undergrads do enjoy being here, and they would like to continue here, and we have a very good medical school. So the vast majority of those students do apply. So the largest pool of applicants for the medical school here is coming from the undergraduate population, which is why we do see still a good number actually go. But as an individual, it remains a neutral factor.
Great. We have a question from Lynn. Lynn would like to know if she's planning on studying abroad at some point during her undergraduate career. Is that possible to do as a pre-med student?
It is possible to do as a pre-med student, and what you want to do is probably meet with Mr. Scherger and map out your coursework so that you can work in the courses you need to be prepared to take your entrance exam, in the case of medical school, the MCAT, and get those done and get your MCAT taken, scheduling that around when you're going to be abroad. So if you're going to be abroad during your third year, you may want to work on getting those courses done before that third year, so you're ready to take the MCAT a little bit earlier. Or if you're going to study abroad during that third year, maybe you take some of those courses when you return from abroad and take your MCAT a little bit later. So it's definitely possible to study abroad, complete your undergraduate degree in 4 years, and then matriculate directly to medical school. It's also possible to adjust that schedule a little bit and maybe matriculate at a different time. But you just need to look ahead and make sure you get those courses in before you have to take that entrance exam.
Thanks. And Sri would like to know, going back to the slide that you showed about the biological and chemical sciences majors, she noticed that you noted that you could take either Math 121 or 125. How would a student know which one to take, and what's the difference between those two courses?
Really, you want to consult what major and what program you're looking at going into to decide that. Either sequence is perfectly okay for the medical schools. The medical schools really don't have a preference for one over the other, and they're not going to advantage one over the other. So you really just want to look at what your major requires and then go with the sequence that's recommended for that. Now, some of the majors, especially like in the biological and chemical sciences, it may depend if you're looking at going for the BA or the BS, which one they prefer. If you want to keep the BS option open, it would be recommended that you start, or that you would do the Math 121, 122 sequence. But if you're certain you want to do the BA, or if you're looking at going into biology, where I'm fairly certain the 125, 126 sequence is okay for the BA or the BS, you'd want to do that.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add about that is when we look at those sequences, Math 125 or Math 121 are both Calculus 1. Math 121 feeds into Math 122 as Calc 2. Those two courses are actually meant to feed into two more courses that are required by engineering majors, and a couple of those courses might be required by a couple of BS degrees. So if you start with Math 121, you can go to 122, so you can do Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, and then on into differential equations. If you start with Math 125 and then follow it up with Math 126, you're also doing Calculus 1 and Calculus 2, but then you don't need to follow on with any additional math after that for the majors that require Math 125 versus Math 126. So the choice between which of those to take really depends on the major that you're planning. And if you go to the FYR guide, you're going to be able to see for each and every major which math sequence is recommended.
Okay, Natasha wants to know about AP credit. She wants to know, with AP Bio, do students still have to take the first two biology courses in the sequence for pre-med? And also, if she has AP credit for chemistry, would she still need to take Chemistry 111?
Yes, in terms of the biology question, the student that has AP credit for bio, you still need to do the 3-course sequence, the biology 214, 215, and 216, because the credit you're going to receive for your AP score is not going to be equivalent to what you need for the medical schools, and so you would want to do the entire sequence. For the chemistry question, if you do have the AP credit for 105 and the 113 lab, you would be able to then move on to engineering 145 if you felt you were ready. You wouldn't have to do the Chem 111.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add there is that, you have your AP credit for biology, but you still have to take Bio 214. So I'll see you in class this fall.
I have a 2-part question here from Tricia. The first part is, can an undergraduate student be involved in case-by-case shadowing of a doctor? And the second part is, in addition to possible research opportunities with a faculty member, are there online postings for other research opportunities that students can look at?
Okay. The first half of that question regarding case by case. There's 2 ways as an undergraduate student you can actually be involved in it. The first one is simply to participate where you're looking for the shadowing experience. So you would sign up with the organization in order to be placed in tandem with a physician at university hospitals. However, and I don't know if this is possible in your first year, but certainly afterwards, if you wanted to be on the other side, the organizing side, that is actually helping your peers, your other pre-meds students find those matches and making those contacts at the hospitals, you certainly could join, because there's officers and they need people to work for the organization. So you could join on either side. I'm pretty certain, though, as a first-year student, only as a participant in it.
As far as the second part of that question and research opportunities, one of the things that I didn't mention before is that we have an office on campus called SOURCE, which is Support for Undergraduate Research and Creative Endeavors. And if you go to the SOURCE office, they do series of seminars to help you find research opportunities. They do summer programs. They help support students doing summer research, sometimes with a little bit of a stipend or a housing allowance and so on. So the SOURCE office is going to be a great place to go to begin your online search looking for research opportunities. Also, going online is a great way to read what faculty research interests are out there. So if you have a particular interest in some area, maybe genetics, you can go to the genetics department of the Case Medical School, see what they're working on, see if there's someone there you might want to work with.
Great. And Mary Lynn wants to know about pre-dental requirements, and how do those differ from what you've talked about so far with the pre-health schedules that you've shown?
Mm-hmm. For the most part, the pre-dental requirements are the same as the pre-med requirements. You still would need to do the year of general chemistry with lab, the year of organic chemistry with lab, the 3 semesters of biology with lab, a year of physics with lab, and then at least 1 course in calculus. So the core sciences remain the same. Whether you need to take additional courses beyond that is going to the dental schools vary quite a bit, actually, beyond that core. And so you may need to take biochemistry, you may need to take anatomy, you may need to take microbiology. And so that'd be something you would want to work with, at least by the time you get to your 3rd year, when hopefully you've started to identify what schools you will be wanting to apply to, and then figuring out what specific courses you would need to take. One other thing, just as a side, while it's not required, one thing I typically do recommend for the dental students is that they consider taking maybe like an art ceramic course, or if they play a musical instrument, to continue that, or just some type of course that's going to require you to do something with manual dexterity, because you were tested on this, and this is part of getting into dental school, is showing that you have the manual dexterity to perform the fine work that you need to when you're working on someone's mouth. And so electives that will help you either improve, refine, or continue those skills are always helpful.
Great, thanks. And we got a question from Joe, kind of along those lines, Stephen, wanting to know about, are there courses outside of the program prereqs that you mentioned that pre-health students might want to consider taking, either to explore or just to kind of give them broader experiences?
Yeah, sure. there certainly are a lot of opportunities, and actually if you look in the first year registration guide under the pre-health section, you actually will see a list of some courses in the humanities and the social sciences and a few science areas as well, like maybe nutrition, that could be very beneficial to help a student explore different areas of healthcare from different perspectives, not just from necessarily the science perspective. And so there's courses in medical anthropology, there's courses in bioethics, not necessarily even in the first year, but later on they may want to consider a course. The econ department teaches a course on the economics or the financial aspects of healthcare and the healthcare system in the United States. The political science department offers a course that looks at health policy in the United States. So there's a lot of other courses that are available just to become more informed about the profession.
Thanks. And we have a question from Hamilton. Hamilton wants to know about pharmacy requirements and how she could go about filling those.
There again, the pharmacy requirements are very similar to the pre-med requirements as well. And one thing that maybe I should mention at this point, since we're getting the different professions mentioned, is that these lists here that we've shown you tonight as well that are in the first year registration guide, they really are written for all the health sciences. It's not just for the pre-med students. Because again, the core sciences, that chemistry, organic chemistry, biology, physics, and math, those are pretty much similar for all of them. For pharmacy specifically, usually you do have to have a second semester of calculus. You may need a little more biochem or chemistry in that area. A course in microbiology is often required. You also find some unique requirements depending there again on which schools you're going to be applying to, because again, this varies quite a bit. Some courses or some programs do want an introductory course in economics. Some require a public speaking course. And so there again, that's something you would want to work with me as the Director of Health Career Advising to identify those unique requirements that you might need to fulfill.
Great. And we have a student who wants to know about prep courses for any of the professional school entrance exams and what kind of opportunities there are for those.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a really great question, because certainly when you're getting ready to take those entrance exams, you want to be as ready as you can be so that you're going to do the best job that you can do. And I think, speaking from my experience, when a student's getting ready to take those exams, there are lots of different ways to do that. And you can do that by taking a prep course. You can do that by studying on your own, but you certainly want to study and you certainly want to prep, whichever method is going to work for you. One of the things to keep in mind is the coursework that we've set out and described here for you this evening is going to contain the content that's on those entrance exams. So by the time you're prepping to take those entrance exams, you should be reviewing that material, not learning it fresh. So that's important. Prep courses can be a great aid and they can help students a lot of times with their confidence level. So if you're one of those people who needs some organized structure to study and getting ready for an exam, a prep course is great. If you're better at doing it on your own, you can do it without a prep course, but in either case, you can be successful.
Thanks. I have a question from Penny. She wants to know about getting involved, high school volunteer experiences that she's had and whether or not medical schools will be looking at those sorts of things.
Yes, they are still valuable. Even 3-4 years when you're going to be applying to those programs, they are still going to be interested in your high school record where it relates to either exposure to the health profession, so shadowing you've done or volunteering that you've done in clinical settings. If you've done research as a high school student, they're going to be interested in that. And community service, community projects that you've been involved in, they're going to be interested in that as well. Now, typically, like awards or student organizations in your high school experience, that typically you don't list unless it's something at a national level, because they're primarily going to be interested in what you were doing as a college student when it comes to that. But certainly anything that relates to exposure to the field, learning about the field firsthand, they do want to hear about that, even things you've done as a high school student.
I think along those lines, in terms of the experiences that you've had as a volunteer or shadowing, and you're going to continue to have those during your undergraduate years so that you're continually exploring the health career that you want to pursue, what you really might want to do is keep a journal. so that every time you have a shadowing or volunteer experience, when you get home that day, write about it. What did it mean to you? What did it mean to the people that you helped? So you're going to collect a series of stories that you're going to be able to use when you have to write your personal statement in your application.
Great. We have a question from Matilda. She wants to know about pre-health student groups that she could get involved with on campus. Just some examples.
Yeah, there certainly are a lot that are available. If you're thinking about pre-med, we actually have 3 pre-med organizations on campus. We have chapters of AMSA, Phi Delta Epsilon, and the Daniel Hell Williams Pre-Med Society. So there's a lot of opportunities there. We have a pre-dental society if you're interested in that area. We have a pre-vet club. There's a pre-farm club on campus, so there are a lot of opportunities there. There are other organizations that relate to the health sciences but maybe are not related to one specific area. So we have Case for Sight, which is an advocacy group that deals, obviously, as the title would suggest, with eyesight issues. There's the MedWish Foundation, where students help collect and package medical supplies that are then shipped overseas for medical missions. So there are a lot of opportunities. The one thing I'd also say, though, is don't feel like you're obligated to join one of those. The med schools aren't going to hold it against you if you don't join one of those. I think one club's good just for the networking that can occur in there, but the med schools respect any area. So if you want to get involved in Greek life, in the residence hall, student government, other advocacy groups, beyond health issues, those are all really good experiences to join.
Okay, we have time for one more question and then we'll wrap up. Josh wants to know, as the pre-health advisor, if you could give me the top 2 things I should keep in mind to best prepare for med school, what would you tell me to do?
The 2 things that I would suggest would be, 1, challenge yourself. The med schools do like to see students that have taken on a regular curriculum, that have kind of pushed their boundaries, have maybe taken some courses that they typically wouldn't see from everyone else. So don't be afraid to challenge yourself. Sometimes pre-med and other pre-health science students, you're worried about, well, I got to protect that GPA and I've got to get all A's in my coursework or I'm not going to get in. There are plenty of students who have gotten B's in courses, and maybe even a C here or there, that have gone on to these professional programs. So don't be afraid to challenge yourself. Secondly, I would encourage you to get as much clinical exposure in as you can. You can never have too much of that. That's not to say you have to do it every single semester and every summer, but throughout the next 3 to 4 years, every year you do need to be getting some of that experience. And again, don't limit yourself just to hospitals or health clinics. Think outside the box and think about those other areas. Again, whether it be something like a hospice center, a patient recovery house, maybe for over a summer or a break, even if it's just for a week or 2, you want to join a medical mission group in another country. All of those can be really great experiences. I don't know if you want to add any of your own advice.
I think that those are really I would say the top 2 things you need to do. And I think challenging yourself is out there. You want to, work hard. There's going to be a lot to do in the next 4 years as you're prepping to get to medical school, but you're demonstrating to them that you're ready for their challenging curriculum. And you guys can do it.
All right. Well, thank you both for all the information that you shared with us tonight. It's been a great session. We're going to go ahead and wrap up now. And before we leave for the evening, I do want to mention a programming note. We do have some upcoming online information sessions that you could continue to tune into. Next week, we'll be getting into some of the school and college specific programs hosted by some of our faculty, starting on Monday the 17th with the Arts and Sciences Performing Arts. And again, this is not just geared towards students who want to major in performing arts, but it's really about how to get involved in opportunities for ensembles, performances, things of that nature, in addition to studies in those areas. We'll move into some of the schools with the Weatherhead School of Management, the Francis Payne Bolton School of Nursing, Thursday and Friday with various faculty from engineering, and finish up the following week with the Humanities, Social Sciences, Biological, and Math and Natural Sciences from the College of Arts and Sciences. Remember, you can tune in live 7 to 8 p.m. on the dates indicated. If you can't make it live, you can always tune in to our YouTube archives, which are usually available available about 24 to 48 hours after the broadcast. Again, as you have questions, always send them to summeredgehelp@case.edu. We'll be happy to answer them for you. And until next time, have a great evening, and we look forward to seeing you this fall.